Before we begin today's episode, we wanted to announce that we have officially launched our Patreon, where you can find exclusive content, engage with North Coast, and get access to perks like recordings from live shows, freestyle tips and tricks, and Patreon-only episodes. Whoa, you're getting access. For top-tier patrons, we'll even have pre-order links for live events and virtual freestyle lessons. Sign me up. So visit patreon.com/North Coast Podcast and help your favorite hip-hop improv team thrive.
Hey everybody, welcome to the North Coast Podcast. We have an amazing episode for you with an amazing guest as well, who I'll introduce in just a second. What you'll hear on this podcast is some chatting with our guest, a little bit of improvisation and freestyle rap about it as well. I'm Luke Miller.
I'm Douglas Widick.
I'm RJ Williams.
I'm Billy Soco.
Dr. Brick.
And our wonderful guest today is Phoenix-based pop rapper with a dancer band, a North Coast alum, so it's so good to have him back in the chair, JD Ricafort, a.k.a. Super Smack.
Super Smack!
Hey. Welcome home, man. How you doing?
It's good to be back. It's
Yes.
fucking good to be back.
We miss you.
Yeah, I missed
You're
you
in
guys
New York
too.
again. We miss you.
Yeah, it feels like home.
Yeah.
It was?
It was home.
What's it been like being back? You've been back for a couple days now, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I had a wedding in D.C. and a wedding in New Orleans 2 weeks after.
Holy shit.
Yep.
Bro.
And I've been meaning to come back to New York, so I was like, I'll just come back to New York, take a little like vacation, maybe a light working vacation for that time in between. And yeah, originally I was just like, I'm just going to hang out, see friends, like eat all the food that I've been missing for the past year. And then I was like, oh, while I'm in New York, I should hit up North Coast, maybe do like see if they have a show. And then I was like, oh, I should hit up Doug, who I do a lot of recording with, because I've got a new album that I'm working on. I'm like, oh, I'll record like a song or two. And then one session became 4 sessions.
Yep.
And now I'm like, oh, I should see a show. And then now I'm seeing a show pretty much every night that I'm here doing like research, because I also do like playwriting and screenwriting and theatrical writing and all that stuff. And now all of a sudden my vacation has turned into me working like twice as hard as I was on a normal week. But that's kind of like fitting for the New York vibe. So I kind of, I wouldn't have it any other way.
They say if you love what you do, you never
not
work a
work.
day in your life.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's what they
Yeah.
say. Yeah, and you seem to really have a passion for what you do and all the effort that you put into it. How did you get into rapping in the first place and your artistry?
Yeah, I got into rapping. How did I get into rapping? I got into rapping through writing In the Heights fan fiction.
Oh. I was not expecting that.
Wow. Explain.
It wasn't exactly fan fiction the way most people think about it, but I was listening to. I was in a
It was
production.
late at night. I was with the man who's singing Piragua.
His hand on my leg.
I was in the bathtub with my laptop, and it was just the right mood. The soundtrack came on. No, I did musical theater professionally for 2 years, from like 2016 to 2018, and I did a production of In the Heights, because I was a hip hop dancer growing up, and that's like the convergence of like breakdancing, b-boying, and like musical theater, singing and dancing turns out to be like a pretty rare skill set. So I ended up getting cast in a couple productions of In the Heights. So I was in this production. I was like just like getting inundated with the music and the vibe. Hamilton was just kind of like picking up at the time, and I was listening to Washington on Your Side from the Hamilton soundtrack.
Great track.
And I had this like idea to rewrite 96,000 from In the Heights to the beat of Washington on Your Side. And so looking back on it, it was basically In the Heights fan fiction, because I was just like reimagining the characters from the story in like an alternate scenario with an alternate song. And I ended up hearing a few months later when I came back to New York, I heard about this program at the Public Theater called the Bars Workshop that was being run by Raphael Crisol and David Diggs, who was he originated the role of Jefferson and Lafayette on Broadway and was performing in it at the time. And it was like this rapping and acting ensemble workshop. So there would be like 15 people let in, and everyone would be a writer and everyone would be a performer. And I decided to submit, and I used that in the Heights fan fiction piece to submit, which is kind of weird. It would be like I don't know, submitting a piece of like Game of Thrones fan fiction to like a workshop that like George R. R. Martin was hosting. So it was kind of a weird choice at the time, but I guess they liked it and it was pretty good. So yeah, that was my first start, and then getting into that workshop just gave me reps and gave me like exposure to other people who were writers and performers, and kind of gave me that was like the first time that I really saw myself as a writer and as a rapper. It was in that Bars Workshop.
That's so cool. And is that what the Star Wars thing came out of?
No, that was another piece of fan fiction.
Okay.
Fan fiction is like a common theme throughout my career. I think it's like a
well,
good
before
way.
we get to the Star Wars thing then, in the Bars Workshop, do you feel like that gave you the lift to eventually start writing original Super Smack? Like, how far after Bars did Super Smack come into the picture?
Yeah. So we did the Bars Workshop, and we did these like adaptations of like classic novels as like rap theater pieces. So we did like The Great Gatsby and Lord of the Flies and all that stuff. And then we filmed this thing, and we had to do some ADR pickups for it. So like get back in the recording studio and do some like dubbing for ourselves. And Rafa was doing the producing, and there was a point where he was like, we were like halfway through the recording session. He was like, "Have you done this before?" And I was like, "No, the first time." And he was like, "A natural, as I expected."
Oh,
wow.
And I was like,
Said it just like
High
that.
praise. High praise.
moly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think
That's high
I
praise.
kept going back to that every time. I was like, I don't know if I can like be a recording artist, and then like hearing those words, getting that like kind of like external encouragement, was definitely something that helped push me forward to like, oh, I actually want to write my own original stuff and record it and be an artist.
And had you been performing up to that point?
Yeah, I'd been acting and doing musical theater, but I hadn't been writing and performing my original work. I hadn't yet created Super
Gotcha.
Smack as a persona, as an artist brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What's the origin of Super Smack? I've always wondered this.
Yeah. So Smack was my gamer tag in Super Smash Brothers, which Luke and I are going to play after this.
So let's hurry it up. That's what I'm trying to say. We'll cut it for time.
Yeah, and it's a it's a name that has like someone told me once that like artists, like pop artists, tend to be either like super villain personas or superhero personas, and so I definitely wanted to have something like super in there. I feel like I can occupy kind of both, maybe a little bit more of the superhero persona, but it was also useful because I wanted a name that could also have a nickname. So like people could feel like that sense of familiarity. So all my music friends just like know me as Smack. When I first moved to Arizona, I moved about a year ago, and like for the first 3 months, I was just doing all this music stuff and like very little of like my own personal social life. And I realized I was like, nobody knows me here by JD. Everyone just knows me as Smack. And I had this weird kind of out of body experience moment. So yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, so now you're kind of like establishing yourself as JD outside of Smack in Phoenix as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that like? What are you up to in Phoenix? Outside of
Outside of
Right. You moved to Phoenix how
hustle.
long ago?
It's been a year, right?
almost exactly a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, and
Happy
Thank you very
birthday.
much.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I was actually born in Phoenix, so it's a little bit of a homecoming, but I left when I was 10, so a lot's changed. And I moved out there because I wanted more kind of free space to sort of spread my wings and go to a market that was less saturated, and feel like I was less in like a rat race and have more room to like experiment, kind of develop myself as an artist and kind of develop the like product that I could then like give to the people, right? So yeah, that's been like some of the big things for why I moved out to Phoenix. And then what was your question about
what do
JD?
Yeah, well, just like establishing. How are you establishing yourself as JD now, as opposed to Smack?
Oh man, it's really hard because I feel I actually have like three. I kind of have like three different names. It's like at work and school, or like when I used to work an office job and school, I went by Juan. which is like my official first name. And then with like my buddies and like improv and stuff, JD, and then music gets Smack. So I feel like there's kind of like 3 sides, and I have to kind of balance out these 3 different personas. So yeah, it's been like an exercise in kind of like bringing JD back in the fold. But a lot of it's just being like hanging out in non-music spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I've been hanging out a lot of like, I'm full-time now on music. So hanging out at like bookstores and coffee shops where people are like talking about their favorite novels and like latest developments in politics and like stuff that like are my other interests, and like finding those other things in common with people. I've also been meeting other singer-songwriters and trying to build up a community of people who know me within the music scene, but also know me as JD, so that I can talk about something I really care about, is helping build up and grow the music art scene in Phoenix. So I've started teaching these artist development workshops for like new singer-songwriters, like how to kind of brand themselves as artists. So there, it's very helpful for them to know me as JD, because I can talk about, I'm JD, Super Smack is this project that I've created. Here's how you can kind of see your careers as a project as well. So yeah, that's been really helpful for me, like kind of finding that balance again of like the people I interact with.
Yeah, that's so cool.
But it also sounds like you've set a healthy boundary with your career too.
It's hard. I mean, like, I feel like you probably know when you're like full-time creativity, you're
It's
like,
brutal.
Where's the stage boundary? When am I like stepping off the stage?
Yeah.
And like when am I like going into another mode?
Right.
So it's hard. I haven't really fully figured it out, but doing all right so far.
Yeah. And Steven, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I never thought of it that way, because I work like a boring office job, and so it's like a treat for me to step out of that and jump into something like this. Very, very different way of looking at it. You guys must have to like find that line or set that line or move that line here and there.
Yeah, it is a dance, a constant dance. And a lot of people, they go as far as like separating all the email address for their artistic self. They separate the bank account. Like I have a separate bank account for North Coast and for my recording stuff. It's call it a loan out company, where you loan out your time to the separate business that you own.
Yep. That was a big moment, and I think it was in July of this year when I formed Super Smack LLC, made a separate bank account, and like before, it's really funny. It's like stupid human psychology. Before, when I would spend money on Super Smack stuff, I'd be like, I know this is the right decision, but like it hurts to spend this money because it's like I can see it leaving my own like the only main bank account that I've ever known. But now I have this separate Super Smack bank account, and I put like some extra funds in it, and now I'm like, oh, gotta spend as much money as possible. Every time I spend money from that bank account, I get like this like sugar high, which I don't know is a good thing or not, but it's definitely helped with like separating that work-life balance.
Hell yeah.
Gotta spend, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta spend, yeah. Gotta spend, yeah. Gotta spend, yeah. Gotta spend, yeah.
Ooh, look at my bank accounts. You can see there is no doubt. I gotta spend all this money on some sweets, on some honey. I get the sugar high to the sky when I look with my eyes at the money at Bank of America. I'm like, oh, God bless America.
Gotta spend. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Gotta spend, yeah.
It feels so good to me when I spend money out of my LLC. I feel like I'm my best friend when I spend a food investment. I use the credit card that's separate. It feels me better about that shit. I'm gonna do it.
Gotta spend, yeah. Gotta spend, yeah.
They say your network is your net worth. Well, let me tell you this. Yeah, let me tell you first. When you got the money and you put it in a locket, I go ahead and take it from one pocket to the other pocket. Yeah, it's still my money, but a different name on it. Yeah, it feels funny. Yeah, that's just how I do it sharp, because that money is now earmarked.
Gotta spend, yeah. Gotta spend, yeah. Here's some information for you to posit. When I go to deposit money into my bank account, the LC. Oh, forgot an L. Well, you see, I bring in the money, ain't funny. Oh, yes, it feels like honey. We said this before I turn to ash, but when I feel good, it's because I spend cash.
Gotta spend. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gotta spend. Gotta spend. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yo, work-life balance, that's the best. Shout out to the motherfucking IRS. Forcing me to form 2 separate bank accounts, separating all my money amounts. Yeah, that's what I do. That's a write-off. Coming here, that was a write-off. Paying for coffee, that's a write-off. Everything I do now, that's a write-off.
Gotta spend. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Write-off.
Gotta spend. Gotta spend. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Write-off.
Spend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dinner with the mom? Right off.
Showing her love.
Did we talk
Right off.
about business? Then this was a business.
You said that you went 6 months without wearing socks. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I remember when you said this.
Wait a
I need to.
second.
RJ, I told that to you in confidence.
I was going to say.
Strictly off the record. No joke though. Like Phoenix is like hot weather, so I was telling RJ like from the months of like April to I don't know whatever October. Like I don't think I wore socks unless it was like for a dance class or for a performance.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's really good. I realized for my body, I'm in my 30s now, and like for dancing to be a big part of like the work and the job, like being in warm weather is really nice. Having access to like a city where like everybody has a swimming pool and a jacuzzi is like pretty nice. I like live in a apartment now where I get to have like a nice bathtub.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. Weather and like outdoor stuff was like also a very welcome part of the change for the last year.
You got socks on your dogs right now?
I do.
Okay,
I got some long
Okay.
Adidas.
We recorded a Patreon exclusive episode where we talked about socks and shoes.
Oh,
Shout out to all you patron.
Oh.
Yeah.
Take a
Yeah.
look.
But don't take them off because otherwise that'd be OnlyFans.
Yeah, you gotta monetize those.
Yeah, feet pics.
Hello.
Feet pics. Oh,
What about the fact that people say that a huge influx of Americans are moving to Arizona and Phoenix specifically? Have you noticed that?
I have, and I'm pretty like excited about it actually. Like obviously I'm worried about gentrification and all those things, but like I think that there's the state of Arizona could do with some diversification. There's a lot of white people there, a lot of Mexican people. Cool, like the largest, definitely the state that I've lived in with the largest like indigenous and native population. Like our Indigenous Peoples Day was like bumping. It was like an actual. It wasn't just like everyone gets the day off and like we feel good about it, not calling it Columbus Day. No, it was like we actually celebrated it, which is pretty freaking rad.
That's what's up.
Yeah,
How's a Filipino community out there?
it's pretty rad. There are a lot of hood Filipinos out in like Mesa, which is like one of the kind of like suburbs or like sub-cities within Phoenix.
Nice.
I actually just performed for like a big night market, and the theme was like Kamayan night, which is like Kamayan is like hands, and like to like make Kamayan is to eat with your hands, which is like it's how the Islanders love to do it. So yeah, the concert was like huge, and I feel like every Filipino in the city came out, and it was rocking.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all know, but back in the day, JD Brick and I would go and do shows on our own. We have Filipino North Coast.
Yep. Oh yeah.
No, just kidding.
Philippine North Coast.
Philippine North Coast.
Philip North Coast. Yeah.
Philip and North.
We only Brick would beatbox with his hands only.
Do you beatbox in
Hands only.
beatbox in Tagalog?
While wearing a skirt made of coconut shells.
we were just doing tinikling. We were just doing tinikling. Have y'all heard of this?
Tinikling?
No, I
Tinikling.
No.
Have you heard of this thing? Have you heard of this
Have
thing?
you heard of this thing?
It's Pacific Islander double Dutch.
Yes.
Is what it is.
Really?
It's
Yeah.
you have
I
these
love
two
that.
big bamboo tree trunks, and they're on the ground, and people are like banging them together rhythmically, and then people are
Whoa.
dancing in and out of them.
National dance of the Philippines.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I've never gotten to do that. I feel like a failed Filipino, but I've never gotten to do that. But I've seen it. It's really cool. It's like really intense.
Tinikling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tinikling. Yeah.
Tinikling.
Yeah.
How big are these tree trunks?
They're like legit bamboo.
Like
Like,
this.
you hold them this like.
Yeah, but there's
Yeah.
a person on each side.
Yeah.
So they're both like this.
They're like 8 feet
Wow.
long.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
it's like
So it's
this
like
and
jumping
this.
jacks and hopscotch mixed on crack. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
There's some footwork required. Agile footwork required.
Yes,
Okay,
and
got
if you miss it, which a lot of dancers
Yeah, what
might,
happened?
I mean, even if you're really good, I mean, there's like really legit,
Yeah.
really
yours-
good ones.
Say
But,
bye
like,
to your ankles.
yes, see you later.
Amputation.
Yeah, I was a
Wow.
clapper when I was younger. I was a clapper.
What?
Yeah, I used to
I was a
clap.
dancer.
Hey!
Wait, okay, all right. We need to
All
talk.
right, we need to talk more.
Collab.
It's
Watch
a
out,
Filipino
Arizona.
connection. It's a Filipino connection. When you're sitting there and you have cultural detection, it's a Filipino connection. It's a Filipino connection. It's a Filipino connection. When you're sitting there with cultural detection, it's a Filipino connection.
It's a Filipino connection. We're aligned. Filipino blood courses through our spines. We do this like every single time. We clap, clap, clap like bamboo.
It's a Filipino connection.
It's a Filipino connection. 'Cause when you're sitting there with a cultural detection, it's a Filipino connection.
I'm Filipino and I'm proud. Thank you very much. Shout out to the Tinikling, the island double Dutch. Oh, we do it, yeah. And then we rollo. Shout out to our favorite dessert.
Hello, hello.
It's a Filipino connection. It's a Filipino connection. When you're sitting there with the cultural detection, it's a Filipino connection.
I love being Filipino.
Hey,
I really like being Filipino.
hey.
I like halo halo lumpia, and I love lechon.
It's a Filipino connection. It's a Filipino connection. When you're sitting there with a cultural connection, it's a Filipino connection.
I think I got room on my album for that.
Lock it in.
Yeah, but you'd find some fire beat for it. Yeah, boom, boom, God, yeah.
Yeah, that was like half true when we went on trips. Because the last when we went to the University of Delaware,
right.
Yeah.
together, which we're actually doing this weekend.
Ayo.
Yeah.
But there was
Yeah.
one Filipino restaurant there, and we decided to all go.
Oh, that's so
Mel was
cool.
there
So
too, but
good.
she went to go with her friends. We were like, wait a minute, we got to do something.
And
So
Jay-
the Filipinos went to the Filipino restaurant,
Yeah.
and Mel was like, "Oh, I'm white. No, thank you."
we're like, we'll bring you back, Lumpia. We'll bring you back,
The
Lumpia.
spirits, like the island spirits of our ancestors, just like possessed us and like guided us to this building.
Also, JD booked a show, I think.
he was like
JD booked
he was like networking with the guy who owned the place
Oh my
because he was like, I
God.
run a Filipino festival here, and Jay was like, oh, tell me more.
Wow.
This guy's always hustling.
You're
You're
not
because you're not
wrong.
always on the hustle, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel
Yeah.
my bank account.
yeah, man. You contain multitudes, JD. You do a lot of different stuff. You're a performer. You're a dancer. You're kind of, you're business oriented and all that stuff. Where'd you get that from?
Oh man, that's a good question. So I think I get a lot of it from like the interaction, the interplay between me and my sister. So it's just the two of us in terms of siblings, and we're very tight. We're very close. Her name's Catherine, 8-time Broadway performer.
Wow.
And we're funny because we both always had interests in arts and tech and business and stuff, but it's kind of manifested in different ways. She has always been kind of like excelling by like jumping up and becoming like the star of like the whatever the existing kind of infrastructure is. And then I was like, when we were young, like she would always like audition for all the shows and like get like the starring roles and stuff. And then I was always really interested in like like, well, number one, like playing with my Legos in my own little corner,
Yeah.
but also like seeking out kind of like the new projects and the new shows and like writing my own little like stupid little plays with like me and my friends and stuff.
Creating the infrastructure.
Creating the infrastructure, exactly. Yeah. So I think I always feel like whenever I'm working in an environment where the existing infrastructure like can no longer contain the type of work that I want to do, I'll leave and go do something else. So that's what happened with musical theater. So when I first started doing musical theater professionally, I was like, I want to see if I can book professional work, like make a living, like singing and dancing in these musical shows. And was able to like kind of prove that out over like a couple of years of like intense auditioning and practicing and all that stuff. I remember I had auditioned for Hamilton actually like a couple times. And every time that I auditioned, I was getting like a little bit further and further in the process to the point where like Telsey, like the casting company, like had my name on like their list of people to like invite when they needed to fill in like an emergency slot. So there was one point where I was like, they had emailed me and they were like, we need like to fill this like certain role on this part of our touring company. Like, do you want to come back in? And at this point it had been like, I don't know, like at least 6 times that I had gone in there. And I'd always felt very comfortable with that material. But it was also around the same time that I was like really picking up. I was about to release my first EP with Super Smack and had been invited on tour with Lex, our common friend, and another really, really dope artist.
Shout out to Lex.
Yeah. And I had to like turn down that audition. I could have made it work, but it would have like really kind of messed with some stuff on the tour. And I remember being faced with this decision of like, do I continue to try and reach for higher rungs on this ladder, or do I kind of explore and see what like building my own ladder looks like? And that's kind of been, I chose the ladder, and that's kind of been like the MO for most of like my career, or like the different careers that I've had. It's also kind of like a big reason of like why I chose to move to Phoenix is because I think a lot of people a lot of like the industry and the ecosystem in places like New York and LA, it's amazing because there's so much happening here. But it's also, people are also there's a machine, and it's motivated by these very linear goals. Are you going to get on Broadway? Are you going to like make it in Hollywood? Like, it's a very like binary thing. And I think that's really cool. I would love to do both of those things one day. But it's also I think because I've had experiences in different careers too, I also really value highly just like being able to live comfortably and make the kind of art that I want to make and do the kind of projects that I want to make. And I think there's value in that. And so I was like, I took a gamble and like, I think I can achieve this by actually leaving the city, at least for this chapter of my life. Maybe I'll come back one day. But yeah.
I think that's really important. It's like defining what your own success is and not letting like an established, idea of what success is. Yeah, kudos. That's like the closest to enlightenment that we can
right. I mean, because we've all been there, right? Where we like wanted something for so long, and then maybe you end up getting it, and then you get it, and then like the shine only lasts for so long. You're like, what next?
Very true.
Maybe it's like, oh, like I want to be on a house team, or I want to be on, I don't know, like on whatever the thing is, right? So
yeah, that's very true. Yeah, my dad started a barbecue restaurant, and then he started making like Mexican desserts, and people were like, "Oh, the Mexican desserts thing's not going to work. You're like a black man making Mexican desserts. They're not going to buy. The restaurants aren't going to buy." And he just followed like that passion. He was like, "I'm going to make my own type of like world within this world and make my own kind of subset." And he's been doing that for like 30, 40 years or something like that. So he just followed that passion. So yeah, that's really cool that you're doing that and making your own type of, your own way in that way. That's what's up.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. I think one of the hardest parts about following that path is that people in the general public will be like, "Oh, but I can't understand what you're doing."
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah, they're like, "But you're not choosing to success."
What do you want? What do you
Yeah.
want? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, what? You don't. It doesn't affect you.
Right.
JD, talk to us about that, because you must have faced that, especially when you're like, oh no, I actually don't want to do this Hamilton thing right now. Like, I'm going to go do my own thing. I wonder if like people in your life kind of met you with that same thing that
Yeah.
Doug was just saying. Like, what do you mean? Like, that's it. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Well, I used to work in tech, and I've
Yeah.
quit that twice. So the people who are closest to me, like my close friends and family, are already familiar with like, JD's doing his thing again. So they're already used to that. So like the first time I left like that, a very secure job, to like go audition for like a community production of In the Heights. It was like, I think that was the first big shock. So yeah, I think like my close network, but yeah, it's really hard to get the general public or like to get people outside to understand that. I don't really have like the cure answer for that because I think most people generally are like, you know, in most parts of the country, most parts of the world, they really only know what's kind of like being mass marketed to them. Shout out to late stage capitalism.
Sure. Right.
But
Shout out.
I think if you just like do what you do what you want to do and like build that community of people around you who like loves working with you, and then the people who love to like, you know, consume what you're making, just like keep building that community. And then you can still work within the system. You can still work within the bigger entertainment spectrum. I think it's just important to not sacrifice like and not forget about like why are you doing this in the first place.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my follow-up for you. So we've been talking about the business side of it, the show business side of it, but you're an options guy, right? So you're like someone who is like, okay, I'm going to read the menu before I go to the restaurant. I need to know what the amenities are in the building, right? Like you're reading docs, right? So what are you like in your day-to-day life outside of show business, given that you're so detail-oriented in your career? Like, what are you like to plan vacations with? What are you like to like how does this manifest in your personal life?
I write a lot. I don't know. I've always wanted to measure like how many words per day I write, but I'm always writing in my journal to myself. And I think part of it is also like the thing that I do to keep myself from going crazy when I'm like working alone, living alone, or whatever. Or maybe this is a sign that I am going crazy. But I have I have full conversations with myself, like a whole like what's it, like a Socratic dialogue, like exchange, where I'm like, if I'm like deciding to go to this, like deciding what I want for lunch, I'm like, well, I could go here, or I could go here, and it's like I'm writing like
You're
a
actually
script,
writing
like
this?
a dialogue,
Oh, okay.
and I'm like, no, but however, like this point, like I actually really want this like steamed chicken from this Thai restaurant, because I want to keep on my gluten-free, dairy-free streak. It's like,
Are you GFDF?
I've been
GFDF.
mostly GFDF for most of the year, except when I've come here to New York.
Are you DTFGF?
DTGF?
Yeah.
Are you
down to fuck with me?
DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you down to stop that dairy? Are you gonna be binary? I don't know what I'm saying, but that milk it's no longer splaying. Are you DTGFDF? What the TFTF? What the fucka? And I want to eat that bread. Wada? Are you DTGFDF? And I wanna butter.
Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF?
Yo, once upon a time, I was feeling mean. I ordered myself an order of poutine, but the next day, it wasn't quite clean in the bathroom. Yeah, that was the scene. It was a big mess, and I'm sorry to impress, but yeah, I was under quite duress, and then I cut out the lactose, and what I want the most is I was feeling the opposite of gross.
Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF?
Okay, JD, I hear the foods that you need, but it seems like you're starting to spread some seed. Okay, I don't want you to gloat, but you keep talking about sowing some oats. These are the alternatives that you want to eat, but I'm a little worried. Do you still eat some meat? Sorry, I don't want to be so suggestive. I just think I need to learn a little bit more about your diet.
DTGFDF? Are you
GFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF?
Are you DTGFDF? Is that what we're saying? Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, I got it. Oh, dairy, I forgot it. Ate some, not so good. In my tummy, not so good. Now it's rumbling, tumbling in my belly. Afterwards, it's smelly.
Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? Are you DTGFDF? JD, do you fuck meat? Do you fuck meat?
Yeah.
JD, do you fuck meat? Do you fuck meat?
Sometimes.
JD, do you fuck meat? Do you fuck meat?
Only when I'm in New York.
Oh, JD, do you fuck milk? Do you fuck
Milk? JD, do you fuck milk? Do you fuck milk? JD, do you fuck milk? Do you fuck milk?
Only when I'm in New York.
Oh, JD, do you fuck bread? Do you fuck bread? JD, do you fuck bread? Do you fuck bread? JD, do you fuck bread? Do you fuck bread?
Right now on this podcast.
JD, do you fuck yourself?
Oh my God. All right. Thank you so much. Oh man. Thank you for listening to the North Coast Podcast. Super Smack, JD Ricafort. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me on,
Where
dudes.
of course, where can people find you?
You can find me at Super Smack Pop on Instagram, TikTok, and Super Smack on Spotify or wherever you love to listen to music.
Fantastic. Thank you for listening to the North Coast Podcast. Follow us at North Coast NYC and also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content, freestyling tips, and a Discord only for our patrons. NorthCoastNYC.com for classes, and we'll see you around at one of our shows. Have a good one.
Nice shot.